The rise of Ibrahim Traore, world's youngest no-nonsense president. If you have been following the news, you must have probably heard or seen news publications about Ibrahim Traore. Since his speech at the just concluded Russia-Africa summit, he has been the center of attention, with many Africans, especially the youthful population, applauding him for his bravery and resilience. In his speech at the summit, he said Africa is a continent rich in mineral resources, but it is the poorest continent in the world, and its leaders need to constantly run to the West to beg for aid. He also said this is the time for African leaders to come together and forge a better alliance to ensure a better future for its people. Since becoming the president of Burkina Faso in October 2022, Ibrahim Traore has been likened to Thomas Sankara, who was a Pan-Africanist who served as the president of Burkina Faso from 1983 to 1989 before he was assassinated. Before we establish how Ibrahim Traore is the new Thomas Sankara, let's take a look at his background and rise to power. Early life. Ibrahim Traore was born in Bondoukoui, Muham province, in 1988. After receiving his primary education in Bondoukoui, he attended a high school in Bobo-Dioulasso, where he became known as being quiet and very talented. From 2006, he studied at the University of Ouagadougou, where he was part of the Association of Muslim Students. He graduated from the university with honors. Traore joined the army of Burkina Faso in 2009 and quickly began to climb the ranks. He was sent to Morocco for anti-aircraft training before being transferred to an infantry unit in Kaya, a town in Burkina Faso's north. Promoted to lieutenant in 2014, Traore joined MINUSMA, a United Nations peacekeeping force involved in the Mali War. In 2018, he was cited as one of the MINUSMA soldiers who showed courage during major rebel attacks in the Tombouctou region. After the mission was over, Traore returned to Burkina Faso, where he assisted in operations against the escalating jihadist insurgency. He fought in the Otapouanou offensive of 2019 and several other counter-insurgency operations in the country's north. He was promoted to captain in 2020. His rise to power. There were a series of events that led to Traore becoming the president. On 24 January 2022, Traore was part of the coup led by Paul-Henri Damiba, deposing and detaining President Roch-Marc Christian Kabore and Prime Minister Lassina Zerbo. While people were celebrating the coup in Ouagadougou, some supporters carried Russian flags as a sign of their call to receive help from Russia in their fight against Islamist terrorism. After the announcement, the military declared that the National Assembly and the government had been dissolved, while the constitution had been suspended. On 31 January, the military junta restored the constitution and appointed Damiba as the interim president. With Damiba at its head, the Patriotic Movement for Safeguard and Restoration military junta pledged to improve security and eventually restore civilian rule. However, the military regime failed to defeat the jihadists. Instead, rebels and other non-state actors even expanded their operations and controlled 40% of the country by September 2022. Many military officers grew dissatisfied with Damiba, believing that he did not focus on the rebellion. Jihadist insurgents launched several major attacks in September 2022, causing the interim president to reshuffle his cabinet. On 12 September, Damiba fired his defense minister, General Aimé Barthélemy Simpore, and assumed the position himself. He also appointed Colonel Major Silas Keita as Minister Delegate in charge of national defense. These changes did not satisfy the disgruntled army elements. Many supporters of the January coup became dissatisfied with the performance of Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba, the junta's leader, regarding his inability to contain the jihadist insurgency. Traore later claimed that he and other officers had tried to get Damiba to refocus on the rebellion, but eventually opted to overthrow him as his ambitions were diverting away from what we set out to do. The dissatisfaction about the situation was highest among younger officers who fought against the rebels at the front lines. In addition, there were delays in pay for the Cobra troops. When the plotters launched their coup on 30 September, Traore still held the rank of captain. On 30 September 2022, Damibo was ousted by the dissatisfied army elements headed by Captain Ibrahim Traore. This came 8 months after he had taken power. Sahel expert and University of Calgary scholar Abdul Zania Salifu argued that his inability to defeat the jihadists had led to Damibo's downfall, as his promise to improve security had been the justification for him taking power in the first place. On 6 October, Traore also assumed the position of interim president as head of state, supreme head of the armed forces. He promises to hold democratic elections in July 2024. Since Traore became president, he began preaching the message of African unity and integration and started fighting against Western interference. In one of his tweets, he stated, "A slave that does not rebel does not deserve pit. The African Union must stop condemning Africans who decide to fight against their own puppet regimes of the West." In February 2023, Traore's government expelled the French forces assisting in fighting the local insurgency from Burkina Faso. He subsequently declared that, "We really want to look at other horizons, because we want win-win partnerships, supporting the diversification of Burkina Faso's international partnerships." Shortly after, Traore's government expressed support for a federation with Mali, and both countries invited Guinea. As of the making of this video, all 3 countries are under military leadership, and if they were to become a union, it would be the largest country ruled by military junta. In April, he declared a general mobilization of the population to support the military, as rebel forces continued to increase the rate of their attacks. In the following month, Traore questioned the planned restoration of democracy for 2024, stating that elections could not be held unless the insurgents were pushed back and the security situation had been improved. Why Ibrahim is being likened to Thomas Sankara? Just like Ibrahim Traore, Thomas Sankara was a Burkinabe revolutionary and political leader who served as the president of Burkina Faso from 1983 until his assassination in 1987. He was known for his left-wing and pan-Africanist ideologies, which sought to promote self-reliance, social justice, and democracy in Burkina Faso and the wider African continent. Thomas Sankara's political program was based on a vision of a more just and equitable society in Burkina Faso. He believed in the power of the people and sought to empower the country's peasants and workers, who he saw as the true agents of social and economic change. He implemented a range of policies aimed at improving the living conditions of ordinary Burkinabés, including land reform, education and healthcare initiatives, and programs to promote gender equality and combat corruption. Sankara's political program, which he called the Burkinabe Revolution, aimed to transform Burkina Faso from a poor agrarian society into a modern, self-sufficient, and egalitarian state. To achieve this, he implemented a range of policies designed to empower the country's peasants and workers, including land redistribution, nationalization of key industries, and the promotion of women's rights. Sankara also sought to promote African unity and independence, and he was a vocal critic of neocolonialism and Western imperialism. He supported liberation movements in other parts of Africa, and he worked to strengthen ties with neighboring countries. Despite his popular support both within Burkina Faso and in other parts of Africa, Sankara's policies and ideology were seen as a threat to the interests of both domestic and foreign elites. Sankara's assassination in 1987 was widely believed to have been orchestrated by his former ally, Blaise Compaoré, who went on to become the president of Burkina Faso. The exact motives behind the assassination remain a matter of debate, but many believe that it was as a result of Sankara's political program and his opposition to the interests of domestic and foreign elites. Despite his short time in power, Sankara's ideas continue to inspire activists and leaders in Burkina Faso and throughout Africa. Similarities between Thomas Sankara and Ibrahim Traore. 1. They both fully joined the army at age 19. 2. They both rose to power at age 33. Thomas Sankara was born in 1949 and rose to power in 1983, while Ibrahim Traore was born in 1988 and rose to power in 2022. 3. They both rose to power via coup d'etat. Thomas Sankara rose to power via coup d'etat against Jean-Baptiste Ouédraogo, while Ibrahim Traore rose to power via coup against Paul-Henri Damiba. 4. They were both highly intelligent and brave students. 5. They both have the same sense of fashion. Ibrahim is dressing the same way Thomas Sankara dressed. 6. They are both Pan-Africanists and believe in the unity of Africa. 7. They are both anti-imperialist and anti-neocolonialism. 8. They both command authority when they speak. 9. They are both loved by Africans and Pan-Africanists. All these similarities have made a lot of people liken Ibrahim Traore to Thomas Sankara. The only difference between both leaders is that Thomas Sankara's life was cut short and he didn't live to implement some of his policies, while Ibrahim Traore is still alive and very much agile. Hopefully he will live long to see his dreams of a united and prosperous Africa come true. Thanks for watching this video. What do you think about these two great African leaders? Do you think Ibrahim is the new Thomas Sankara or both should never be likened to each other? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.